Oh my word, I've been waiting for this day for quite some time. It seems like there was a massive gap between Warbands and coming to the end of its lifetime and when Bannerlord came out. And between that, everybody was waiting for something to fill it in that spot. And now Bannerlord's out, everything seems to be coming at once. I mean, we got Holdfast Nations at War, we got Battle Cry of Freedom, we got War of Rights. It seems to go on and on, but now Age of Napoleon is on the horizon, coming on the 15th of May. It will be a complete overhaul mod for Battle Cry of Freedom. A little bit of a quick background, I've done many videos on Battle Cry of Freedom. If you want to see one specifically, go watch this one because I think it's my best. Yeah, it's a standalone game based off the North and South mod for Mount and Blade Warband. It pictures you in the Civil War, Union versus the Confederates, fighting in historically accurate regiments and uniforms using musketry and cannons, with hundreds of players on the same server, fighting in events in lines, using the tactics of the day, ordering them about in this commander battle, much like the perfect mix between a single player of Mount and Blade and the multiplayer of the large servers. Battle Cry of Freedom has been out for some time now, especially in the early access and the backer stages, and it's been pretty goddamn successful. As I've said, I played it numerous times and I've had a lot of fun on it. Yet this came completely out of the blue for me, because this team are making the Napoleonic Wars modification. It's not officially made by the devs, but as far as I'm aware, they're very much working closely with them, so it's going to be a perfect recreation within Battle Cry of Freedom itself. Now, if this doesn't put the stock up for that game, I don't know what will. We've been waiting so long for something that would be the successor to Mount and Blade Warband's Napoleonic DLC. There were hundreds of regiments with tens of thousands of players within that, all going to line battles and sieges, training events and promotion events within this community, and they were waiting for something to come to be the successor to the NW DLC. Bannerlord came out, but it doesn't have multiplayer servers quite yet, so they weren't able to make a mod for that. Yeah, we do have Sword and Musket on the horizon, but it's still going to be quite some time. Then there was Holdfast Nations at War. It was fantastic, but I don't quite think it scratched that itch for many of the same fans and regiments that were in NW DLC. But this one, I think this could be it, and I'll get onto why towards the end of the video. But for now, let's actually take a quick look at the game. First off, we can see that it's going to have full period level building designs. Of course, made of brick, we have a church here. We have a better angle of the church from this side, seeing a bit more of what we can expect. Now, I'm assuming what we can see by the corners there where it's not quite finished isn't anything to do with destructive terrain. I'm assuming that's just how they're building the assets and the buildings within the maps. This looks to be part of the map Hougoumont or La Haye-Saint. I mean, that was a part of Mount and Blade Warband's Napoleonic Wars DLC, and this looks very similar to some of the buildings that we saw within this map. If we compare these side by side, we can see the gateway through the house, being able to go in the windows above, the wall of the garden as well, and the little building on the side. Now, with Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars, you could actually get up on top of this roof. Whether that will be the same within this mod for Battle Cry of Freedom, I guess we're gonna have to find out. Moving on, we have a broader look here, a work in progress of the courtyard of one of the two farmhouses. And then we move on to some of the more interesting stuff in terms of uniforms and assets. These look to be French uniforms. We can see some of the officer hats here as well. And of course, we can see all the bottom halves, the top halves, the uniforms, whether you're a footman, a grenadier, light infantry, and so on and so forth. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not entirely all that fleshed out on my Napoleonic Wars uniforms, especially the French side. Maybe if you guys can identify some stuff here, let me know down in the comments if there's any sort of marine uniforms or even stuff on the level of cavalry or artillery officers. Next, we see a little bit of a better view of this as well, just out in a courtyard. We can see on the left, though, there's still the Union and Confederate flags there. I guess that hasn't been changed quite yet. These are very work in progress screenshots, but a little bit of a closer up, what we can see is quite interesting in the background here. Now, this isn't confirmation of anything, but a lot of this is walls that have breaches in it, and of course the buildings that have breaches in it. Is this the introduction of destructive terrain within this mod? That would be really awesome. It was a massive part of the Napoleonic Wars DLC for Bannerlord, so maybe we could see something similar here, being able to breach the walls, getting into farmhouses, getting into these holdable positions, and of course being able to siege castles and forts on top of hills, much like we did in these big clan battles and sieges in the Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars DLC. And moving on to the final one, just looking at some of the lower halves of the uniforms and assets that are implemented within this mod. This is a better angle of that sort of thing from the inside of the farm buildings, seeing all the destruction, seeing the bricks laying about. I really hope that this is dynamic. Now, of course, there's always the possibility that this could just be built into the scenes. However, there's so much of it and it's in such strange places that it would be weird to be built into the scenes. I'm hoping, just hoping that this and these holes have been made by some sort of artillery and dynamically done that way. Moving on, then we start to see some of the more beautiful shots. So I'm going to give you a more cinematic look. Some of these things, like you've got the French line infantry holding their line, firing. We can see the bot status. So these guys are obviously bots, not real players at the moment, but there will be large real player battles, as well as the commander stuff that we've seen in Battle Cry of Freedom. Moving on to some of the British line infantry as well, doing their thing. And of course, once they're presenting and firing in line, these look to be, I'm going to go out on a whim here, and I'm going to say foot guards, more like a Coldstream type. Now, I could be very, very wrong here, and I'm sure there are many nerds in the comments that will get angry at me. Next, we have a look at more French infantry as well, firing in line. It looks great, and one thing that I'm really happy about is the fact that it's going to be putting as a mod in Battle Cry of Freedom, because Battle Cry of Freedom has a brilliant bit of groundwork here. It is solely made for this line battle purpose, and the fact that this mod assumably would be free, made into the Napoleonic Wars, will translate so well, especially with such brilliant graphics made for muskets. When you're firing lines and muskets in Battle Cry of Freedom, you see the heat haze and the musket balls come out. I mean, here we can see the British light infantry as well, crouching in the grass doing their thing, showing off the different formations. Moving on to some more French infantry, and of course then we have the Highlanders, probably the 42nd or some other Highlander regiments, and this game looks beautiful. Is it on a level of something like a War of Rights? No, of course it's not. However, it is still a really good looking game, and it kind of caters towards that larger scale and that kind of audience that was for Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars. You see, Holdfast was fantastic. I think Holdfast is a good game. However, it strayed way too much going into more of the mainstream, which is good for Holdfast as a title in general. It's done really well off the back of it, and it's got many new players in. But it was trying to sort of fill that hole when it got to the end of Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars' DLC lifetime before Bannerlord came out, and it tried to fit itself in the middle to try and get all those regiments over, but it didn't quite have the same feel. The combat wasn't very good at all, and it kind of felt a little bit too different. But I think Battle Cry of Freedom really nails that similarity between a standalone game and the Napoleonic Wars DLC for Mount and Blade. And if you want to know why, that's because the people that make Battle Cry of Freedom made the Napoleonic Wars mod for Mount and Blade Warband. A little bit of a knowledge nugget for you there. However, this mod is made separately to Battle Cry of Freedom. It will be implemented with it, and as far as I'm aware, they are working closely with the developers, so it will almost be like a DLC expansion, a bit like the World War I Frontlines DLC for Holdfast Nations of War. I'm assuming it will be free because it's being called a mod, but it's being made by Aztir, Valk, Demonkey, and Doc M30, some people that have been in the community for a long time, so I think this is going to be as faithful as a recreation of Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars as possible. We've all been waiting for some sort of mod, sword and musket, to release for Bannerlord to recreate what we had back in the day with the NW DLC, but I think this is the closest we're going to get so far. Holdfast tried it, but they didn't quite succeed, I think, the way many people wanted them to. But on the 15th of May, we'll be getting our hands on Battle Cry of Freedom Age of Napoleon, and I am so excited, because finally Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars has a true worthy successor. A little bit inside our boots, our trousers, merging through the stairs somewhat. It's always going to happen. And of course, what I assume will later be the captain's quarters. Moving up through, we get onto the decks of the ship. There's not much detail in this bit so far. We have some barrels and cannons, of course, some stairs, but the engraving in the wood here has been done beautifully.